Jim, we're here in what you have called the Hooven Heart Antrim.
Now that's Slimish behind me here, the heart of the Ulster-Scots speaking part of County Antrim.
What is this thing that we call Ulster-Scots?
It's our local tongue that we've been talking now for 400 years. Mostly Scots, wee bit English, wee bit Irish.
There's a strong tradition of poetry in Ulster-Scots, Jim.
Oh, an old tradition, a very strong tradition at the time of the Weavers' poets. Died off a wee bit, but new going will again.
Your own poetry is an echo of that poetry.
I ever hunt neck as I talk about because I hunt my mind.
We'll go for a dinner now.
We'll go for a dinner around our own country.
And where better to begin first to than near Dunloy, to the own bit of County Antrim where Jim and myself was both reared, looking down through the Tullahans. Well, there it is, Jim. The hymn of the Himely Tongue.
The hymn of the Himely Tongue, as you say. And what a street you hear. Those Knocklead, where the there's the Ballycastle. Right straight across there, are the bug. You Bilnalub, Knockahullet, Drumadarach, you can down the way, you Ballyknock, Macherhoney, can back up the way, Clough Mills, Clough, and so on. And that you have the hymn of the Himely Tongue, spoken, by the way, by everybody that lives in that particular area.
It doesn't matter what religion they are or what their politics is,
well,
they all talk the one way.
That's a point you and I have been making. Yans that are against it would try to argue that it's an invention for Protestants, and Yans that are for it would try to maybe give the impression that it was kind of their tongue and everybody else's. Both views are nonsense, rubbish. It's our tongue, and by our I mean as all kind. By the way through Dunloy, new sprung fae solid rock, a Fenton runs, where 3 wathering stains stand Cairn Lake. Yan uprising, new lined wi' age-old witness, points of being 12 acre, Cruchin, yan to other side, Bowrit with Falcha the yen, fair fire the tether, stains, with the yen welcome to Ag and by, enabling jet, for all that stay. The script on the big stain, we'd call a standing stain, that's the ancient Ogham script. And the 12 weir stains, Falcha and Fairfaye. In other words, the stains are saying welcome in a way that recognises both our cultures. The whole thought behind it was reconciliation. Because the folk in Dunloy were both Ulster-Scot and Irish, you know, there's no, they didn't see any contradiction in that at all.
Looking for another body that had nae bother with being both Scottish and Irish, here's us in another bit of County Antrim, the home of the Prince of the Weaver Poets. John, what's the name of this place?
Well, modern people call it Ballycarry, but a lot of years ago it was known as Broad Island, or Braid Island if you were speaking Scots. And the old graveyard has many interesting things. The church where the first Presbyterian minister in Ireland preached, Edward Bryce, preached within those walls in 1613, which is a long time ago. But behind me is the monument to James Orr, who is a famous man, famous for the poetry he wrote. But his poetry was not only well known, but it was greatly respected. He could write in English, but he wrote chiefly in Scots, bred Scots. And it is something that is compared with the very best of the Weaver poets, maybe with the best of the Scots poets wherever. This was a man of their own, talking in their own tongue and speaking words about the things they knew and understood. Should it be about the potato? They grew potatoes with a ton, they knew all of that. And all of that, Donegal, the ones that weren't there knew somebody that had been, whatever, over and over again. All of this touched their hearts.
The lukes o' weans were stayed behin, were marked by mony a passion, by dread to ston, by shame to rin, by scorn and consternation. With spite they curse, with grief they pray, now move, now pause a Betty. 'Tis mad to gang, 'tis death to stay, an unco doleful ditty on sic a day.
When you're sitting on your own reading or you're beginning your ain, there's never any doubt about that at all. You're beginning your ain.
When James Orr plied his trades as weaver and poet, no far away in Lyle's Hill next Temple Patrick, his friend Samuel Thompson was making his own poetic mark.
Ha! Where got ye that? Where hae ye flung the old wool hat? Hae ye hunked up in old and torn to frecht the rooks from among the corn? Or thrown in spider nuke to leg along with the old rejected wig?
Samuel Thompson of County Antrim, or maybe James Orr, those two they're well up there in terms of ability, and I think either of them could stand up and be counted as the best Ulster poet before the present age, when we have very good exemplars here nowadays. Thompson had his finger on the pulse of what was fashionable, what was important. He's an interesting figure, very, very competent and very, very capable and very, very confident in using Ulster-Scots.
To town they morn as Lizzie heed to sell a pickle yarn. A wandering with her and she a spied a sporting at the cairn. Along the heath be skirted green, it pled wi' money a wheel. She stood and I did bathe her in, and thought it was the deal she saw at Freaks.
There was a wee bit of a drop-off a few years ago, an interest in Ulster-Scots poetry. Why did that come about?
One thing I would say, I think the national education system, that came in 1871. The readers that they read did not have any written Scots. They didn't have any Burns. They had, to some extent, there was an interest in Dublin because Ireland was all one country and nobody knew there was going to be a separation. Dublin was where they looked to. They also looked to London. They looked to the wider empire, and they were being trained to take their places in that wider empire. They were going to be the leaders who went out and addressed the troops in Bombay, and they weren't going to be doing that in the Scots that they spoke round here.
Folk were talking their own Scotch tongue and a brave bit of Ulster, frae Donegal to Down. But to hear more about the written word, we're taking ourselves to the Irish Library in Belfast. They hae a brave wheen of books written Scots and Ulster-Scots, with some of the books more than 200 year old.
The first evidence that we can find of poetry in Ulster-Scots actually published is in this publication, the Ulster Miscellany, printed in 1753. Now, not all of it is in Ulster-Scots. You need to go very nearly to the end of it, and you find from page 369 onwards, there's a little section called Scotch Poems.
Why do the poets say and awe say fiercely on the critics fall? Miscaw them say that nane can pass without his share of goose and ass.
And we may assume that they were writing poems before 1753, but this is the first printed evidence of it.
Say, Bonnie Jenny, are you there? The lass that's winsome, plump and fair. I pity the aspiring chiel, wha wad to wealth and grandeur spiel, wha uses all his art and skill to row his meanteth up the hill.
What impact did Robbie Burns make?
Burns had an enormous impact. I mean, not just in Ulster, an enormous impact in Scotland. Here was somebody for the first time writing excoriating and moving verse in the language of the common people, in Scots.
Know thou whatever title suit thee, old Horny, Satan, Nick or Clutie. Fair fa your honest sonsy face, great chieftain o' the puddin' race.
It acted as an inspiration to other men in Burns's relatively humble station of life, but living in Ulster and speaking Ulster-Scots as their daily language to attempt the same kind of thing.
What though unhamely fare we dine, wear hodden grey and all that? Gie fools their silks, and knaves their wine. A man's a man for all that. For all that and all that, their tinsel show and all that. The honest man, though e'er sae poor, is king o' men for all that.
Would you say that the centenary of Burns's death in 1896 was a last flourishing?
Even at that time, it was noted that not much was actually being published in Ulster about Burns. And you could have said the same about the extent of actual publication in Ulster-Scots. Certainly in the 1880s and 1890s, there'd been, say, W.G. Little. There were one or two newspaper columnists in County Antrim. But there was very little being published. That, I think, is one of the marks of certainly most of the 20th century.
No long ago, new Ulster-Scots writing was as rare as a gowk in winter. But then in the 1990s, a few folk had a stab at writing in the lead. And after the success of his word book, The Hamely Tongue, James Fenton published his first book of poetry, with poems rooted like the most of his work in his own North Antrim.
This is Dromedara, where I spent the first 7 years of my life, and then when out of the hell went to Dunlip, it's only a Queen of Field lengths away, when I was 7 years old. But this was him up to that point.
You were talking about rackles of horses. That's a rackle of horse now.
It's no in great shape now, but I was a queer strong staying house. And we left this house in 1938. There were 7 of the family, and the father and mother were 9 of us in the house.
Tell us, Jim, did you know you were talking the Hamely Tongue when you were wee?
You know, you must have said that I knew I was breathing. We talked any other way, nobody talked any other way. Well, I mean, the schoolmaster talked a different way, you know. And we had to talk different in school. There was the audience, you know. They'd say, oh, no, I don't speak like that. I speak proper English. Talking polite, as we called it. But for the general run of things, that was the way they talked. Now, as soon as they went up to the school to speak to the teacher, or as soon as they were talking to the doctor, or to the minister or the priest or whatever, well then, of course, they would put on their best tongue.
And it never had a name, really?
Oh, not at all. No, never had a name. It was just the way he talked. That was all there was to it. This is a wee poem from the earliest days in this house. The day my youngest brother was born, in fact. I wasn't allowed into the house, of course. And just behind it round there's a shoch with a wee water wheel. And I would hide round there, but I'd come out for a kick now and again to see what was happening. I call it another world because another world began for me that day as well. Kept out by for the black cars coming, out of sight and the sheltery yunk, the strone of the shucks, endless running, burling the water wheel, burling, we nae soon or whispered soon, hunkering, watching, the earlian back out, blocking the door, watching the car quit, blocking the lane, awa by the town road, next to the postman, keechling, rubbing her hands in the merly clout, another wee parcel, and awa in, pushing the door tae, the ha's plop and red as blood into the blob and blurry swirl of bubbles, gin whirling, run, back and forth, tae catched with the hurry of the running water, they were carried awa to another world.
Nowadays, Ballymena is a busy big town. but once it was home to one of the last of the handloom weaver poets. A bodyway descendant who now teaches about Ulster-Scots up at Queen's, and who has made his own study o' his poetic kinsman.
We're here to commemorate David Herbison, the Bard of Dunclug, one of my ancestors who's buried here, and it's also in this cemetery that a monument was erected in 1883 to mark his distinction as Bard of Dunclug.
He's a very prosperous looking gent in that bust there. But he was a weaver, even.
Yes, he grew up in the townland of Laymore, and he was apprenticed as a weaver at the age of 14. And these poets were always known as the bard of their own locality. So this is the townland of Dunclug, so David Herbison was known as the Bard of Dunclug. Once again, there are poets who are trying to make Ulster-Scots poetry part of the literary environment, and my friend here, James Fenton, is one of them. James is an innovator in the sense that he explores different forms from simply the traditional verse forms of the weaver poets, and he also brings a special sensitivity to the language.
It was his native tune, it's your native tune, and I think you're the end to use a wee bit of his work now.
Could our forefathers rise frae the grave where they lie and see the steam engine at speed passing by, they surely would say that the foul fiend himsel was stealing awa the big bellows of hell. Or could they be here in a wild wintry nicht, when Luna is wrapped in her shroud frae her sicht, and see the gaslight in its glory burst out, dispelling the danger of darkness and doubt. Again, they would say, "Our come we surprised that we had broke down a' the stars frae the skies, and closed them in lanterns to scatter licht round the streets and the lanes o' me ain native tune."
Jim, were you a bit with smelling much when you were wee?
No, the tune itself, but you know, would have been through it, gone up to the famous causeway. Why?
You never stopped off at the other place that Bushmell's famous for?
Well, the Husky House. Well, the way I was brought up, Liam, that was the Deal's house. No harm to them new, but that's the way it was seen, that's the way it was talked about.
Of course, now, Bushmell's better known for the alphabet angel, Ross Wilson's statue.
Ross Wilson's statue in the corner just here where we're gone, the alphabet angel's card. There's an estate on here called Dunderave. Some call it Dunderav, but I call it Dunderave.
This is a bit of your own writing here, Jim.
This is part of the poem on Flemish. Ross liked it. It's tied in with his ideas for his sculpture, and here's the man himself, and here's the sculpture.
The inspiration for that sculpture is a generational thing. It's a mixture of things that influenced me while growing up in a place called Wisharkin. And the sculpture's about the idea of redeeming language. The angel is a messenger who's bringing back words and phrases that have almost been forgotten or lost.
And there's a lot of symbolism in it, Ross.
Yeah, I mean, the symbolism is very symbolic and very simple in a way, but they're almost like little bullet points to help the inspiration carry on. The idea of the capital A, alphabet angel, alpha, the beginning of language, the trumpet, as the angels would, be familiar with, to herald the community to come and receive this language, the rucksack that contains the words and phrases that have almost been forgotten, this idea of redeeming language and the language of redemption. They're all pretty straightforward. On each side of the rucksack there's a heart. It represents the language of the tongue being brought back to the heart of the people and the heart of the land.
I have that dream, not quite as skillfully produced as this, but a dream where there'd be a pride in that culture, in that language, and where the language would recapture the reality and the truth that is really in that language. Here I stand, where yence a hardened wheat stood, this land that cried its streamers back, for this is home.
Heading back for Belfast, me and Jim are taking a wander to the launch of a series of books by modern Ulster-Scots writers and poets. There's tea and buns and a bit of yarning when the Ulster-Scots Language Society has published 6 new books.
So if you didn't like the look of me, close your eyes and try and take a walk with me down that side of the road. In the middle of the country when the sun's just rising on a nice spring morning. Away down the back road and the net no yet clear in the quickness of jingling chain. And a wee bird joins to sing for to welcome the spring. Man, it's nice to be out here your lane. At 13 I was hired, gaily time I retired. 60 years is flew by for our shame. But then what would I do to put on me day? Damn it, I would miss being out here my lane. I understand my stuff, you understand my stuff. What about the poor creature at Disney understand it? If they go to Jim's book, then the whole thing becomes alive in the page to them.
I was looking to make a picture of the tongue rather than just a dictionary. You know?
Well, I think our way of talking is painting pictures with your tongue all the time.
That's it. And
the wee sentence, and it giving somebody the idea of what that word, how it fell into a sentence and all that.
This is the whole...
They simply put down a word and said that means that. No, it's a bit flat.
I'd want to tell you oft about the tongue itself.
No.
Because it's like picking up a French dictionary and you know no French.
Willie McElroy lived out at Echas just outside Newton. He was born and reared in the old farmhouse, along with his 3 brothers and 2 sisters. His ma and dad was long away, and there was just the one sister Maggie living now.
Have you got picture an old boy hanging over a half door with a cap over your knee and old stumps of teeth and hadn't he shaved for the best part of a week nor washed for any longer time, and he couldn't stop affronting folk that were going by the door and yelling, especially wee Hezzies. They had something to say and they would went by the door and guldered back at him, "Go on, you dirty beast, you away and wash yourself."
Off now to the Erds for a yarn with author Philip Robeson, a buddy that has made his own study of the Ulster-Scots tongue.
Marvellous, isn't it? You look behind you there.
Ah, it's beautiful.
Yeah. Wonder what's like in the winter time.
Say it be a bit wetter.
A bit rougher,
a bit later. Philip has been writing about Ulster-Scots over the years. So does he see folk here in more pride now in their own tongue?
That is the big thing. It's confidence, it's pride, it's awareness. Because 10 years ago, I think everybody thought it was just talking ignorant or talking slang or talking bad English. And it's something you never did in front of a stranger or a professional person. You would never have seen bilingual street signs, in English and Ulster-Scots anyway. You would never have seen job ads or any official documentation. Now, a lot of people would argue street signs are all right, for you are getting genuine Ulster-Scots there. But with translation of formal documents into Ulster-Scots, that's a different matter. The message I think most people get from that is that it's about respect. It's not how it's done, whether the language suits that sort of thing, but it's the fact that it's getting the recognition.
A lot of them forms, Philip, are very hard to understand in standard English.
That's right.
Never mind Ulster-Scots.
People that have looked at some of the formal writings, and they say, you know, I talk Scottish, but I can't understand a word of that, you know. Well, part of that is that they've never seen it written down before.
What about the future for Ulster-Scots?
The big thing for me is the development of literacy in Ulster-Scots, because the best native speakers, and I don't mean this in a derogatory way, but most native speakers are illiterate in Ulster-Scots because there's been no schooling in it. I'm not saying they're illiterate in English, but they're illiterate in Ulster-Scots. Sometimes you can read it with difficulty. Very few people have tried to read it, but I think that's the biggest change we're going to see in the next 10 years.
If you want to see the future, look at your wains. Back in North Antrim, there's yen school where the wains is queerly enjoying their own tongue.
The Preta gathering. Do ye mind the times and harvest climes when we went gathering pretas a business. Then pared to your wage at the back of the hedge. Was your tay frae a gallon can? A loaf of bread with butter well spread, and a coating of hay-made jam. And long Kyle sits by their pitted pits, as they thatched and shovelled soil. Then a fire of peat and a bite to eat, at the end of a hard day's toil.
It's been a very interesting experiment actually to bring it into the classroom, because what we found was that family members, for example Granny, who might otherwise have been castigated as an old galut because she didn't just speak the way that they wanted, suddenly she was a very valuable character because she had a richness of language that she was able to share with the children. It has given them a pride in what their own true Hamely tongue is.
We're going to read this poem, Mine and Bab. Bab and I were born and brought up in two old stone firm houses. Oh, they were nae mair than 50 years apart. They're both reckles now, just hanging together in nae mair. And there was a lade's a wee river that carries water into the mill, and it was full of what I call grunts. That's a wee fish with a bird on it. And sucking eels, or lampreys, would be the correct name of them. And things like that. We were never away from this place. And then as we got older, we used to wander the bogs and the hills around that country. Mine and Bab. Mine means, doesn't just mean remembering, it means thinking back on Bab. Leaving that all there again. We saw the licht a feel apart. We're never long for the other. We prog for fun in every nook and fun the deal together. Nor thought the yen mech loose the tether. For endless hours along the lade and down the rough back fa, we gennel troots and birded grunts, we sucking eels and ah. We'll hud for sicht and for the law. We saw the tuttle hunt the gowk, low hour the rashy flow, and fun the greeting pee-weeps birds hud on the gravel now, where Whattrick's duke and Bucky's grow. We tramped lake bogs and trakes tie braes, with een as sharp as hacks, for every scrug and sitting den for hap-marked pads and tracks, and Hurkle doon be cove dig backs. We raked the land frae end to end, we scunged both day and night, and gien nae thocht at say the way to what was wrong or recht. Nae thocht of but knew we micht. But ons by and lang awa, what ged to sich or sab, you wait to war the runnings are, quite currucht by the hab. Nae running new, nae mare, nae Bab.
Jim, we're back on the hip of Slemmish, nearly where we started frae.
Gael where we started frae, and we've been running along the old country, and we've seen a lock and hard lock. The tradition stretches for the own wains, recht back to Orr and beyond, and the eggs are hard all around the country.
And you have a good heart for our own tongue.
I'm very hopeful for the future,